Okay. This meeting is make sure I don't forget that. All right. All right. So let's start diving in, getting comfortable in your seat. We're just gonna do a quick grounding, um, coming together, creating some sacred space. Excuse me, my throat has been scratchy all day. Alrighty, so closing your eyes if you feel comfortable with that. Taking some slow, intentional breaths, arriving in our bodies, beginning to soften your gaze or close your eyes. Notice where your body is being held. Feeling the support from your chair, your couch, or the ground. There is nothing you need to do right now. Just arrive with your breath. Now taking a slow inhale through your nose and a gentle exhale from your mouth. Inhaling again and feeling your breath widen your ribs. Exhale, letting your shoulders soften. And allowing your breath to find its natural rhythm. Now bring your awareness to the soles of your feet. Imagine gentle roots extending downward from your feet, moving through the floor, through the building, traveling all the way down to Mother Earth. Feeling the steady and ancient presence of Mother Earth beneath you. She is constant. She is holding you. And in this moment, You just need to rest. From the earth, imagine a slow, nourishing energy rising up through the roots. This energy is cool and steady and supportive. As you breathe, this energy travels up your legs, into your hips, into your belly and your chest. Feeling this grounded energy that is here to support your body and your spirit. As we begin our dream bridge work, silently set an intention for yourself this evening, or allow yourself to be fully present for what wants to arrive. And taking one final breath and gently beginning to return your awareness to the room, to the space. Okay. Now I feel like we can begin for real. I just want to say thank you to everyone for being here on this Wednesday evening at 8 p.m. or whatever time it is where you are. It's time is really the currency. So thank you for spending your time with me this evening. Um, we're gonna pretty much dive right in today. I wanted to start with a grounding meditation just to really, like I said, set the container for the room, set the tone for where we're going, what we're going to be exploring. I see some familiar names in here and some new folks. So I would like to introduce myself. My name is Lindsay Ayala Hinalji. I am the founder of Yabisi. I am a New Eurekan born and raised in the Bronx, and I have found my way into this work through a lot of connecting to spirit through curiosity, allowing myself to, I call like, uh, find the breadcrumbs, like travel and find the breadcrumbs. Um, Sorry. And through that experience, I grew up like a lot of Puerto Rican kids, a lot of the Caribbean diasporic experience where it's like Catholic in the front, a little brujeria in the back. Like there's things that we do, but sometimes you don't know why you do them, but you're just like, oh, so my mom does. Like, you ever go to church and stuff, but like, she's gonna like beat me with those herbs or like the birds come in for the cleansing or the eggs. So there's a lot of the things you do because you do. But even as a very young child, I felt really called and curious about these practices. So I asked a lot of questions. On my walks home from school, I would pop into the botanicas and like ask questions to the people who were in there about the saints and the herbs. And I've followed that curiosity into my adulthood. And in 2017, I opened my first botanica in Brooklyn. My journey followed through plant medicine, specifically working in cannabis medicine, working on a farm. And that really took me on this deep spiritual journey that's I've been on for almost 20 years at this point. So opening a botanica really set me on my path. From there, I really began to understand my family lineage a bit more. It kind of took me throwing myself out there and really answering the call to learn that my great grandmother had owned a botanica in Santurce, that her mother had a centro in Aguadilla. Things started really, the doors began to open as I really said yes to the call. And I find myself in a different position now, 15 years later, almost really intentionally being on this journey, seeking community, where a lot of the folks who come into our botanica, yes, are coming for remedies or herbs that we have. But what folks have really been seeking over this time is understanding of spiritual practices. It's been countless conversations I've had where someone is reaching for, perhaps it's a Florida water that we make in shop, but they're like, oh my God, this smell reminds me of my grandmother. And, all of a sudden this whole flashback comes, or you're remembering the altar candles and the santos and songs, or sometimes songs spark that remembrance in your body. And I started to realize that, over this experience, over this journey that I had been on, there really was not a lot of central spaces where I was able to connect with other like-minded individuals, connect with practitioners or healers who were doing this practice that reminded me of home or reminded me of my lineage or sparked a remembrance that I'm not even sure where to pinpoint, but I feel it really, alive in my bones. Um, and so that's what all of this is. That is what Yabisi is. We were bread and butter for about 10 years before last year, changing our name to Yabisi. Yabisi means trees in Taino. And like the trees, we are rooted in this spiritual experience, spiritual curiosity, spiritual education. We exist as a few different branches. One branch is our botanica, where I remake a lot of my family remedies. A lot of our work is rooted in clinical herbalism that touches heavily on spiritual herbalism because we believe that any physical manifestation, really the root can be spiritual, emotional, etc. Um, from the Botanica, we also have our School of Remembrance, which is bringing us here together today. The School of Remembrance is a year-long program intended to help practitioners and emerging practitioners begin to weave in diasporic practices into their work or into just their knowing and being. We also have a Yabisi healing ecosystem. It is a directory of BIPOC healers and practitioners who work out of our botanica, or really they're around the globe at this point. A lot of them are doing virtual work, but it's a hub for ethical practitioners. And then we also have ceremonies and workshops like this, where we get to connect and offer accessible points for folks to dip a toe in to see how they're feeling, spiritually curious, or folks who have been in this world for a while but are seeking connection and maybe a refresher, a new perspective of learning things. Um, our School of Remembrance is going to be launching later this summer at the end of June, June 29th. And my hope is that um, I want to, again, make it very accessible to folks wherever they are on their journey. So, leading up to the school's beginning, the school's official start date, I'm going to be hosting monthly workshops like this that are really fundamentals, I would say, in spiritual practice. We'll be covering curanderismo, espiritismo, and I'm not sure what we're doing for the third class yet because I really want to see how these first two go, what kind of vibes folks are looking for, what kind of energy folks are really wanting to explore. But tonight we are connecting for Dreambridge, and it felt very fitting because today is the first day of Pisces season. Pisces really rules our subconscious. It really rules that kind of where we step between the veil, one foot in this world and one foot in the other realms. And I think for many of us who are here, you're either already walking that intentionally or you're like, ooh, something's a little different. I want to see what's good. Or so you're aware of the veil and you are definitely walking in both worlds. So it felt very fitting to practice dream bridging and connect with our ancestors and spirit guides. I have a PowerPoint because your Capricorn girly comes with all the things. So let me actually,
I think you're on mute, Lindsay. We can't hear you if you're talking.
hey, thank you so much. Can you hear me now? Thumbs up?
Yeah, we can hear
Okay, cool. Thank you. Yeah, because I was reading for a while, so thank you for that.
you.
All right, let's start from here. So, dream bridging is a traditional spiritual practice found in curanderismo and other indigenous and diasporic traditions, where dreams are treated as a living bridge between the physical world and the spiritual world. This is the place where ancestors, guides, the soul, and the unseen communicate with us directly. Rather than viewing dreams as random brain activity, dream bridging understands dreaming as a sacred technology of relationship. Dream bridging is the practice of intentionally cultivating your dream space so that you can communicate with ancestors and spirit guides, receive guidance, warnings, or blessings, retrieve lost soul fragments or memories, travel spiritually for healing or for knowledge, strengthen your intuition and spiritual discernment, and deepen your relationship with the unseen world. And so this evening, we're going to be talking about dream bridging from the lineage of curanderismo. This is a folk healing tradition rooted in Caribbean practices with deep intersections with Amazonian shamanism. Curanderismo is an earth-based system of healing that works through plants, rituals, prayers, dreams, and the body to restore balance between our spirit, our physical form, and our mind. In curanderismo, dreams are not symbolic like abstractions. We consider them meeting places, sort of a portal where ancestors, guides, and plant allies can teach, initiate, or communicate with us. This way of working understands sleep as an ancestral technology and dreaming as a relational act beyond space-time constraints. In this program, we are intentionally visiting different lineages of ancestral technologies and highlighting where diasporic practices intersect, where they mirror one another, and where we share common roots across the Amazon, throughout the Caribbean, and beyond. This is not about collapsing the lineages. This is just honoring resonance and again, mirroring intersections. Everyone who received the link tonight also received information about our dream bridging tincture. This is the formula that I actually created to support this work. So these herbs were sourced from the Amazon and reflect the journeys and the plant teachers traditionally worked, the ones that we work with to help bridge the worlds of perception and to help us deepen our ancestral connection. When they're blended together, these plants are really beautiful companions for dream work, for ritual, and for these sorts of remembrance activations. So, how is dream bridging used in curanderismo? In curanderismo, we often consider dreams as messages from spirits, from our ancestors. The first type of message or communication is ancestral communication. Dreams are a primary way for our ancestors to make contact. Curanderas may ask ancestors questions before sleep. Let's say you're wanting to connect with your lineage more, you're not very familiar with your roots. This is a really beautiful practice of reaching out to them and asking for more communication. This is great for receiving healing instructions or ritual guidance in dreams once you do have that rapport and relationship with your ancestors. And in the dream world, we are visited by deceased loved ones for reconciliation, for closure, or just for closeness. The second is soul retrieval or trauma healing. Dreams are seen as a place where parts of our soul travel. Through dream work, practitioners can recover fragmented aspects of the self, resolve emotional wounds, receive symbols that reveal the root of an illness, something like susto or mar de ojo, things of that sort. Dreams are really a great, safe, and accessible way for us to diagnose spiritual imbalance, even from our own deep inner wisdom. Divination and diagnosis. Curanderas may use dreams in the ways others use cards or shells or different forms of divination. So they can use their dreams to ask about a client's condition, perhaps even bridging to their ancestors. They can interpret animal, plants, water, or ancestor symbols when in this dream journey. And they can receive confirmation about whether or not to proceed with certain work. Sometimes we do need to ask permission, we do need to check in, and this is again a way for us to connect with the other realms. Plant spirit communication. This is definitely how some of the plants connect with me. Many healers receive teachings directly from plants through dreams. You may learn how to prepare a remedy. You may learn what dosage to use, what prayer or song belongs to a plant. Maybe you hear it for the first time and are able to recollect it. And when a plant is appropriate for use or contraindicated, meaning that we should not be moving forward with working with a particular plant. This is especially common when plants are considered maestros or maestras. For example, plants like ayahuasca, peyote, ones of that sort, where people sometimes really feel a strong calling to one of those plant allies. Another way that dream bridging is used is for protection and spiritual training. These dream journeys can strengthen spiritual protection, train our spirit body for astral travel. They can teach discernment between trickster energy versus benevolent spirits. And they teach us to learn boundaries within the spirit world. Within the School of Remembrance program, we're going to be diving really deep into this in our third level talking about discernment, like we said, trickster versus benevolent energies, all of all of that. And some of the foundational methods for dream bridging are often super simple. Sometimes we can get really caught up in what we think we need for certain rituals and practices. Um, but I find that some of the most, I would say, powerful but strongest connections I've had are really with a glass of water, a candle, and some prayer. So, um, the first one is, of course, praying to your ancestors before sleep or speaking to your ancestors, maybe writing in your journal to connect with them in that way. You can, of course, use our Dreambridge tincture, and we have a guided meditation that comes along with it to help you really step into that dream portal. You can sleep with dream-inducing herbs, perhaps having a tea. I remember I used to burn mugwort before going to bed to really help my dream travels get deeper. For me, I found that drinking the tea was very much more transformational, but you can use dried herbs under your pillows, right on your nightstand. You find the way that the plants really want to connect with you in that way. Keeping dream journals are really helpful too, just jotting down some memories or recollections from the dream the night before. It is found to be really successful when asking specific questions aloud before bed. So, again, going back to the question about lineage, perhaps wanting to connect or learn more about your benevolent ancestors, you can really ask out loud. Spirit is always near, Spirit is always ready to receive. You can use spiritual baths or limpiezas before sleep. This is something we'll be talking about in our next activation class. We're going to be talking about spiritual baths and limpias to help calm our minds. Sometimes the anxiety and busyness of our mind from the day to day can doesn't prevent us from dreaming because I believe that we dream even on the nights we don't remember, but it prevents us from really fully allowing our body to be present so that we can remember and receive the messages. So these spiritual technologies, spiritual baths and limpias really help us to release some of that tension, allowing our soul and our body to rest. And then there's dream incubation, which is requesting guidance on a particular matter, similar to speaking out loud, but maybe you're connecting with a specific ancestor or guide and you want more clarification, etc. I'm going to stop sharing for just a moment. I think that was right. All right. So I want to pause and ask if anybody has any questions or anything of that sort before we step into the meditation. You feel free to unmute yourself.
I guess.
Javante?
Oh, sorry.
Go ahead, Sibo.
Are you sure? Sorry, I didn't know if you were raising hands. I had to join from my phone. It wasn't working for my iPad for some reason.
It's all good. Hey.
I guess my question was about the herbs that you mentioned. You mentioned mugwort, basil, and lavender for dream work, and I was wondering if you work with particular herbs for something like ancestral work versus a soul retrieval.
Definitely. I definitely work with different plants for different types of dream retrievals or even like dream connections. I named those three because I feel like most folks have those accessible in their pantries in this moment, or even just like essential oil or something with those herbs. Um, you asked about ancestral connection. I, particular in our botanica, we have a flower essence called cohoba, and it's from the cohoba tree. And that one, for me, has been really deeply connecting with my ancestors. The cohoba tree grows throughout South America, throughout the Caribbean, so it really does weave a lot of diasporic cultures. Um, Jojoba is really great. Tobacco is really great, I think, too. Um, Whether you sleep with the dried, I don't want to say like a frontal leaf, but a cigar or something nearby. Connecting with tobacco in that way, I feel like for many of us, that's like deep in our roots.
Mhm.
And again, one that I think is relatively accessible. In terms of soul retrieval, it really would depend on the type of soul retrieval we're doing, if this is past life, if this is early childhood. Ghost pipe is a really beautiful plant to work with for that. Chamomile also, which sounds pretty
Mm,
common, but chamomile is very powerful when we are going out and coming back with something like a soul retrieval.
okay. Thank you.
Yeah, of course.
So mine's is not necessarily a question, but just wanting to share of
Beautiful.
how affirming spirit is, because at the end of this month, I'm going to be taking a herbal certification class. So I'm going to be communing and interfacing with many herbs and learning how they work with the bodily systems. And so, yeah, I just want to share that how spirit will always align us on our path
Mhm.
when we're walking in alignment. So for anybody on this call, if you ever doubt, trust spirit, y'all.
Confirmation. I love that. Congratulations on starting your herbal journey. That is so exciting.
Yeah, I had a quick question. I
Yes.
just wanted to ask, what do you think would best support dream recall, like when you're coming out of your dream?
Um, so it's hard to say specifically what could be like making you feel blocked from your dream realm. For me, like personally, when I was wanting to connect more to my dream realm, I found that I was smoking cannabis too heavily before bed. I
Mm.
found that when I was smoking earlier in the day, I was able to recall my dreams. When I was smoking closer, for some reason, I was able to have a deep sleep, but I feel like the astral I wasn't able to recall. Um, Peppermint is great for that if you're feeling like maybe even something not like cannabis, but something like you find your mind really racing before bed and you're a little bit out of body. And when your body's really tired, but your brain is still really doing the motions, peppermint is really great for that. It helps to dispel any mental anxieties, and it's a really nice, like, calming tea for your belly as well. Our Dreambridge is truly formulated for this type of work. There is an active herb called Zacatetichi. We call it the Mexican dream herb. That is a really powerful herb that helps us to, again, travel into the astral and helps us to sort of knock away all of those uh, boundaries that we sort of self-impose sometimes. In that tincture, there's Zacatetichi. There's also Tulsi, which is really great for our nervous system, allowing us to really be in that receptive state. There's chamomile, again, allowing us to go out of our bodies and come back. And there's blue lotus as well, which is very like opening for your pineal gland. And we formulated that specifically for folks who are wanting to connect to their dream realm, but are having a hard time like finding their route there.
Um,
Thank you.
actually, I feel like that last part actually might tie a little bit into mine. When I was younger, I feel like my dreams are a lot more like almost premonition type, where to the point where even like my best friends would call me if they're like, "Hey, I was thinking of doing this that seems a little dangerous or crazy. Have you dreamed of anything recently?" And I'd be like, "No." They're like, "Okay, cool."
Hmm.
I feel like just with life and not listening to my own intuition, I've kind of lost that, and I feel like that's what attracted me to this class. And um, so I think that herb, that the last one that you mentioned about like maybe like Brent calling that back. Um, but I was just kind of the question was kind of like these different ways you can use it. I was kind of wondering if that like kind of falls into one of these, or is that maybe different than the dream bridge and like ancestral, or I don't
You
know what
mean
I'm
the
asking.
different herbs? No, it's okay. I'm kind of picking up what you're putting down. Um, So you used to have prophetic dreams as a child. You feel very
Yeah.
connected to that realm. And of course, I feel like that's the case for many of us where we are taught to second guess ourselves, especially when it comes to your intuition, especially when you're a young girl. It's like, we're
Yeah.
just kind of like led out of that. And you're wanting to, of course, connect back to that, looking for herbs or ways to that, find pathways back to that inner knowing.
Yeah.
Um, Again, out the Dreambridge, definitely check it out. It's non-psychoactive. The practice is really you put it in a glass of water before bed. You drink half of that glass and keep it on your nightstand. And then in the morning, you drink the rest of that water and you really allow the vibration of that medicine, the remembrance of your body. Take a few deep breaths. And then even if you're like writing something down that's like, I don't really remember all the things, but there was like blue flowers and like I was in a bed and then I was in a pool, like all the random stream of consciousness, like the more you practice doing that, the more the stream, like the golden thread really starts to reveal itself. And of course, it may not happen that first morning or second morning that you do this practice because you're finding your rhythm again. Or maybe even talking out loud because I feel like even you saying that folks calling you and asking you and just having that exchange of information. So if you're sending yourself voice notes, but finding your mode where your stream of consciousness is really like able to tap into it again. And the herbs are beautiful because they are just our supportive allies. Like we can do this, but these are just like our helpful friends to be like, we got you. We're gonna help you get there quicker with support. So I hope that was helpful. I
Um,
can go right ahead.
yeah, my question was around, and even if this is something you can share after the workshop or towards the end, but any guidance or materials or things that can help with interpretation of dreams. I find that my dreams are really like beings or things that I've never seen before or aren't even like of this world that I just don't know what it means or how to interpret it. So any resources that you can share around that would be really helpful.
For sure. I'm definitely not the dream interpretation girly, but I do know for sure that some practices that have been tried and true throughout my personal experience and reflected through community has been that stream of consciousness. Just taking a moment to write some things down. It's not always as easy to do it right when we wake up, but even if you're able to do it in your notes file, because sometimes, and you'll find when we step into the dream bridge practice in a few moments, sometimes you're like, oh, I'm seeing beings, and like they're not really my ancestors. They look like they're from some galactic somewhere. They might could really be some galactic ancestors, some galactic guides that are coming back in. And again, sometimes we are trained to think like, oh, that's crazy, or like, oh my God, that sounds so wild. And it might really be wild, but our dream realm is such a uncharted territory for so many of us. I have some practitioner friends who regularly talk with celestial beings, and then there's those of us who are like, whoa, what the fuck? So there's a spectrum. But I have found again that that stream of consciousness practice can be really helpful because you sort of gauge who these folks are that are maybe returning at different points. Maybe they don't visit for a month or two, but you're writing this down and you're like, oh shit, I remember like a month ago I had a similar dream. And you can go back and look at your records or your, you know, documentation of that experience. And again, like I said, to the person previous, like that golden thread really begins to reveal itself through these stream of consciousness experiences. I'm going to pause on questions. You're welcome. I'm going to pause on questions until the end, just so we can, again, be mindful of everyone's time. I see that we have some questions or comments in the chat, so I will go back to that as soon as we are done with the journey. But I really want to get y'all in this Dream Bridge experience because intellectualizing it is one thing, but being able to really experience it is going to be a different embodied practice. So let's get cozy. I'm actually going to send you all a link because I find that having a little background music can be so helpful. And it always sounds like trash when I play it in the background, so you can open up a different screen for this. It's just some nature forest sounds you already know. We are from the stars. You are, yes. Alrighty. So feel free to turn off your camera at this point. This is the point where we're going to be getting as cozy as you'd like. Lay down on your couch or however you want to get into this meditative space. I'm going to turn off my camera as well. Before we begin, allow yourself to arrive fully in this space. Wherever you are, just let your body settle, letting your shoulders soften, letting your breath deepen. This is sacred time that you have taken for yourself this evening. A time where the veil begins to thin. And we begin by calling in the protection of our ancestors and guides. Silently or aloud, repeat after me. I call in my benevolent and elevated ancestors and guides. Only those who walk with love. Only those aligned with my highest good. Taking a deep inhale and an exhale. Feel an auric boundary form like a circle of light around you. You are safe. You are grounded. Taking 3 slow breaths on your own pace. With each exhale, you are drifting deeper into the dreamscape. Bringing your awareness to the crown of your head. Imagine a warm moonlight gently resting there. It begins to soften your scalp, your forehead, your jaw, and your throat. Your shoulders begin to melt downward. Your arms are heavy and your hands are open. Your chest softens. You feel your heartbeat, and your breath becomes like an ocean tide. Your belly releases, and your hips soften. Your legs grow warm and relaxed. Your feet become heavy, and with each breath, you drift deeper. Not quite asleep, but between the waking and the dreaming state. The place where visions begin, the place where your ancestors can reach you. As you breathe, you begin to imagine. Imagine yourself standing barefoot on living earth, feeling the grass beneath your feet, the cool, soft blades brushing against your skin. The ground feels firm but welcoming, supportive even. You feel a cool breeze move across your arms and face. And you take a deep inhale, feeling the air rich and green, smelling damp soil, crushed leaves, the sense of earth after rain. You listen, hearing leaves rustle overhead and insects humming in the distance. You hear and tune into the subtle music of nature. Not loud, not demanding, just present. And as you stand and arrive in this place, you feel its familiarity, as though a part of you remembers this place. Ahead of you, you notice a narrow path, just a natural opening through the land. And you begin to walk slowly towards it. Each step feels grounded and unhurried. Your awareness drops deeper into your body, into presence and sensation. You realize that you are walking not only through this space, but through layers of time, of memory. As you continue to walk ahead, the path begins to open. You step into a wide clearing, and at the center, you notice a large, old tree, a massive tree, the kind that feels more like an ancient being than a plant. The trunk of this tree is thick and textured with deep grooves. Its roots stretch outward across the earth like living veins. Its branches rise high above you, disappearing into leaves and shadow in the sky. As you approach, you feel something shift inside of your body. Perhaps it is a recognition. Perhaps it is the feeling of safety. You recognize this as a sacred tree. Across many traditions, trees are known as bridges between worlds. Their roots reach into the underworld, the ancestral realm, the realm of memory. Their trunks exist here in the human world, the world of breath, of blood and body. And their branches stretch upward towards the heavens, towards spirit, toward mystery, and toward the divine. These trees connect the three realms. And this is why offerings are left at their roots, while altars are built beside them, why our ancestors gathered around them. They are living portals. And in this moment, this tree is your portal. As you step closer and continue to examine this tree, you notice small signs of reverence and stones gathered near its roots, petals scattered in the soil. You continue to explore the base of this tree, perhaps resting your back against its roots, feeling the cool earth beneath you. You place your hand against the bark, and there is a quiet hum beneath your palm. You're taking a few deep inhales and exhales, connecting with this ancient tree and this portal. When you feel ready, you can slowly stand and begin to walk around the tree, following the curve of its trunk. And you begin to notice something unusual, something that looks like a subtle outline in the bark. As you keep walking towards it, becomes clearer. You recognize this as a door, gently carved into the tree itself. As though it has always been there, just waiting for you to notice it. As you stand before this door, you place your hand upon it. You feel the curiosity bubbling inside of your being, a gentle anticipation, a sense of being expected. Know that when you open this door, we are crossing into another realm, taking a deep breath. And when you feel ready, push open the door. Inside, the space is larger than you had imagined. Soft lights fill the interior. It feels warm and safe. The walls seem alive. It's like being inside of the heart of the tree. And there, waiting for you, is a presence. Perhaps it is one figure or several ancestors and guides. They do not appear frightening, they appear as they wish to be seen. Maybe they look like people you recognize. Maybe they are unfamiliar, but you feel like you know them deeply. Perhaps there is no figure at all, just a felt presence and knowing. What matters is the feeling. These are your benevolent and elevated ancestors and guides. Those who come with love and clarity and care. Taking a moment to speak softly with them from your heart. Perhaps they offer words. Perhaps they offer emotion. Perhaps they offer memory. Ask them if there is anything that they would like for you to know. Is there something in your lineage that wants to be seen? Is there anything that they would like you to release or forgive? Allow space, being receptive, feeling comfort. Some may feel grief gently releasing with every breath. Some may feel held for the first time. If this is your first time meeting with them, allow the connection to feel simple and not rushed. If you feel the sensations or emotions coming up in your body, allow them to wash over you, using your breath to help move and process those emotions. There is silence. Welcome silence. Appreciate the presence. Know that you are exactly where you need to be. When this moment feels complete and you sense a gentle understanding, we begin to close out our time with our ancestors or guides, receiving any more information or healings. Knowing that this ancestor is not leaving you, their presence does not end here. They can always be connected to through the altars, through your dreams, in meditation, through quiet moments of remembrance. You offer them thanks, offer them gratitude, taking a moment to locate the door that you entered through. Once again, offering them your gratitude, offering gratitude to the spirit of the tree who has held you into this journey, dream bridging. You step back through the door, allowing it to softly close behind you. And you find yourself once again standing at the clearing before this ancient tree. But something in you now has shifted, like a new root that's been formed. Know that you can always return to this space in your mind's eye through this practice of dream bridging. Begin walking back along the path, tuning back into the sounds of nature, the crickets and the leaves and the wind. Feeling the cool grass or moss beneath your feet again, the cool air on your skin. The landscape begins to soften like a dream that is dissolving. And you begin to bring your awareness slowly back to your breath, feeling the inhale and the warmth of an exhale. Feeling the weight of your body where you are seated or laying down. And we gently return so that the body can hold what the spirit has just received. Gently moving your hands or your feet, bringing attention to your physical body, to your heartbeat. Taking fuller breaths and coming back into the space fully, into the here and now. And you'll know you're ready when your camera is on. Take your time, sip some water. I do have a journal prompt for those who feel called. The journal prompt is, what did my ancestor or guide want me to know? And how does that change the way that I'm walking through the world? We'll take about 3 to 4 minutes for this journal experience.
The last part of that prompt, what did my ancestor or guide want me to know, and how does it change my experience of how I show up in the world?
Yeah, or how you're walking through the world.
Good.
Okay, maybe just another minute on your journal reflection. And I'd love to invite anyone who would like to share where you went, what your experience was like, who did you connect with?
I'd love to share.
Okay, thank you.
I don't mind going first. Firstly, that was like very emotional in a way that I didn't expect. I have been realizing for a while that like I really am carrying a lot of my family grief as long as like as well as some of my own personal grief, but I'm like the only person in my family that's like leaning into this kind of work who is like very much aware that like this kind of work has existed in my family lineage.
Mhm,
Um, my grandmother was a yerbera from all that I've heard back in Puerto Rico before my family came to New York. So I know I have this sort of like herbal working or like working with plants kind of practice in my bloodline, which I
mhm,
always kind of felt really drawn to. But the first thing that came to me during this meditation, was the tree tabonuco from Puerto Rico,
mhm,
which I was assigned as a plant tester last semester in a class that I was taking with Brandon Ruiz from Ucayette Farms. And it's a plant that I didn't really like for the research that I tried to do on it, I don't feel as if it like came to me quite yet.
mhm,
But I kind of intuited a couple of things, which Brandon was kind of like, that's just as valid as any other research, which was very validating to me. And so this was the tree that came to me kind of before you even really were like describing a tree. Like I had this feeling, and Tabonuco to me is a very masculine tree. So I started to have almost this like father-like figure, kind of like it felt like I felt like I was hugging the tree and
mhm,
a kid being held by their dad, which or like grandfather, this kind of just like very safe
mhm,
like masculine energy, which is not something that I have in my life, so that was really interesting. But once I went into the tree, I was like greeted by my great grandmother who was the herbalist. And I was really reminded of like something that was like quite emotional. I was a preemie baby. My mom went into labor super early. She was in labor for about 4 days.
wow,
And on the fourth day, she like, as I was growing up, she told me that her grandmother who had passed like way before I was born, me and her never met, which I also think is very interesting, came to her and told her like I'm taking her in reference to me, which was not taken lightly because her grandmother was dead. So it kind of became this like, I'm taking her, or like I have to take her now. And
mhm.
so, that freaked my mom out, as I'm sure many people
Yeah.
would be freaked out. She just was like, told the hospital, get this baby out of me. I don't care. I spent a month in the NICU and then I came home and now I'm here. But I think the thing that kind of stuck with me was like getting that reminder, and like I've gotten so many messages in the past that like I really was sent here to do some kind of work within my family and I don't really know what that is. And I'm not really feeling brave enough to like do this with them because they've like really
Mhm.
hurt me in the past. And so that was something that like is honestly quite hard for me to sit with. Even now, I'm obviously like
Yeah.
kind of working with my emotions a little bit right now. But just having this feeling of being like hand chosen by your ancestors and like that can be really difficult. Um,
Mhm.
so I'm just kind of sitting with that now, and I just wanted to share that a little bit. I think it's like a lot of beautiful feelings, but also a lot of like difficult feelings. It's difficult work. It's not easy.
Right.
But the past year, I think, has been showing me that like this work, like you really have to give to yourself first before you can start to do this work. And I'm still trying to figure out what that looks like because I'm obviously dealing with a lot and like trying to meet these people more than halfway because they're not coming my 50%. So it's like I've got
Mhm.
to have more to give. Um, but that was really interesting. And there's another like small message that like I don't really want to share right now.
That's fine.
But that's for me to find out.
Yeah.
But Thank you. That's kind of all
Yeah,
I'm gonna
thank
share for
you.
now, but I hope
Thank you
everyone
so
else had a
much.
meaningful experience.
Thank you. I appreciate you sharing that. And it is really emotional. Like it is really emotional work, especially like you said, where you're the one, like you know that you've been the one that was chosen to reclaim these practices. And how beautiful is that you were able to connect with your great grandmother in that way and just that affirmation that you know she's with you and guiding you and supporting you through this journey. And you know, when we do this type of healing work and reclamation work, even though your family isn't on board in this conscious way, like, yes, Stephanie, let's go. It's like you're doing that healing work for them and for your great grandmother, your grandmothers as well. So thank you for being here and for sharing again. I really appreciate it. Javante.
Yes. First off, that was an amazing meditation, dropped in immediately. And as you were guiding us, I was approaching a tree, and this thing was massive to the point where in the meditation I had to look up at it.
Mm,
I was like, okay, I got to research and try to find what type of tree it was. And I did, and it looked very similar to a kapok tree with really big trunk base.
mhm,
Um, and so we went around the tree and walked through the door of the base of the tree, and there was an ancestor that was sitting there waiting for me on the other side, and we sat across from each other over a fire. And as I started to perceive this ancestor, it looked like an older male, and my mind immediately went to my grandfather who passed in December of 2024. And so I started to ask in the meditation if that was him, but then the ancestor said, no, we are many. And immediately in
mm,
my mind, they were like, refer to us as the elder, and we are many acting as one. And that resonated with me because going back to what we talked about earlier about connecting to higher conscious beings, I've connected to beings in higher dimensions and they work as a body, right? A collective body. And so my ancestors were like, we are working as one, but we are many. So refer to us as the elder. And that resonated very deeply because I've been seeking guidance. I am
mhm.
one of the only ones in my family who's doing this work. And so as we were sitting there, and then you started to guide us in terms of releasing something, I wrote it down here. It says that they wanted me to fully release the desire to know so that I can fully open and trust the divine consciousness that is present. And that has been a theme.
Mhm. I feel you.
Um, very, my sun and moon is Virgo, rising Scorpio. So very analytical,
Mhm,
want to know every detail and structure and compartmentalize. And so my path has been allowing myself to just be and allow things to unfold as they should and
mhm.
trust the process. So I received exactly what I needed. So this was really beautiful. And I will go back to that tree to meditate and connect with the elder.
I love that. Thank you so much. That is so beautiful. And as you were saying that about the elders saying, like, we are many, even though we look like one, that is like the essence of trees as well, you know, like they're all interconnected underground. And it really is this just master brain. So thank you for sharing that and for that affirmation. I'm sure that hit home for many of us in the class tonight. Jasmine, I see your hand up as well.
Hi,
Hi.
excuse me. So I just wanted to say that was so beautiful. As I was walking on the grass, picturing that, I immediately got a vision of my grandfather. He used to have a house in Queens, and every time we pulled up to visit my grandparents, every Sunday, he'd be mowing the lawn. So I got a vivid vision of that, of him, and he was very tall, and I saw myself as a little girl hugging him. Um, There are these trees in Hawaii. I recently visited a year ago for my sister's wedding, and they look like the trees in Avatar, and that's the tree that I saw. just massive with these ropey, like twisted vines around and these hanging things. When I went through the door, it was green and lush. And I'm a Virgo also. So I see a lot of green in my dreams and imagery of green and green turtles and everything's green that comes to me. Um, Also, I saw my grandmother who we used to have the same dreams. And she was smiling at
Mm.
me. She used to wear a lot of white, so she had white on. And she was smiling at me like we still have those secrets that we used to share. I felt
Mhm.
very protected. I felt very loved. And I can see spirit. So when I go deep and I start seeing white images, glowing images, they don't present themselves just glowing to me.
Mhm.
I have a cat, so when I was doing this, she came and laid on my chest. And she always does that when spirit's there. So it was very, very, very beautiful. Thank you for
That's
that.
really beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing. I love that. I love that you and your grandma been dream bridging since back in the day. That is so beautiful.
Yeah,
Thank you for
thank you.
sharing. Camilla?
Hi. First of all, thank you. Um, this was what an experience. So I was battling between uh dream bridging my intuition and my ADHD. At some point you said something like remember, and then all of a sudden I just and super loud just kept hearing Mufasa's voice, remember, remember when like the sky opened up. So that's why I say I'm like, I don't know if that was like them already. Well, first of all, I was feeling spirit as right before the meeting. I just started feeling already kind of like that. I don't want to call it heaviness, but like that blanket of energy that you start feeling when well, that's how I know
Mhm.
they're around because I start feeling kind of like a blanket of energy around me, right? And I was like, all right. But then as we kind of progressed, I just also want to share that my daughters were very much present and tuned in with me as well, which they were a little restless, but it was interesting because they like really wanted to listen in as well. So I felt that was very nice to be able to experience it with them. But
That's so sweet.
um, as we progressed, I also saw a very big tree. I've been Googling here trying to identify the tree, but someone mentioned it right before me that it looked like the tree in Avatar. Um, so I was like, let me take a step further. I was like, all right, well, ancestral. So let me go to the motherland, to Colombia. And there's some trees in the
Mhm.
Amazon that are also very similar to the Avatar tree. So um, when I walk into the tree, uh, it was like as if I stepped into a cottage and the cottage was empty. And right away I fell into like, wounded, abandoned inner child. Like you see, like no one ever shows up for me.
Mm.
Right away into the wound. Didn't even like let me catch my breath or anything. But as I went into like that inner child tantrum, I was like, why don't I ever see them or why don't they show up for me? Like I heard the voice saying, remember, you don't see, you hear and you feel. And I was like, okay, I'm very good at seeing, like I could visualize and see details, but I don't see presence the way but I could hear it like full blown have a conversation with the presence, right? And I could feel it. Um, so as you were saying, like what messages they have for you, it was another woman's voice. She mentioned certain feelings that I've been battling recently with you know, anger and resentments and stuff. And she
Mhm.
basically said, release these feelings because they're poison to your soul. And as she was saying that, and at some point I just heard your voice, but I didn't know what you were saying anymore. I remember there was like as if an earthquake was hitting the tree, right? And everything went pitch black, and all of a sudden I start seeing violent waves hitting the windows of the tree, right? And almost as if I'm getting submerged, as if the water levels were rising.
Mm.
And it was just getting like pitch black in the cottage. Um, and it was like a lot of elements hit me, like a storm, hurricane,
Mm-hmm.
tsunami, and then it settled. And I understood what the elements were also telling me, or the who the elements represented, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, but then once that storm calmed down, um, I essentially, I don't want to say I got kicked out, but she's like, all right, you could go on your way now. You got the message right before you started closing out. And as I was starting to leave the little cottage in the tree, I was able to finally see her. And, I got some clarity because I've been having a group of like Madama spirits,
Mm-hmm.
coming forward from my spiritual court, and I've been having a hard time fully identifying them and understanding, and they left me a key word, which was palenqueras. I don't know if you're familiar with
Mm-mm.
the term. So palenqueras are, if anyone's ever traveled to Cartagena or San Basilio de Palenque in Colombia, they're essentially kind of almost like the madamas of that region, right? They're medicine women. Yeah, you see, they're usually housewives, medicine women. They have the cultural like uh Colombian dresses, and they carry like the big palanganas with the fruit on their head.
Mm-hmm.
Does anyone know what I'm talking about? Um
Yes.
I got the
so
image. Mm-hmm.
yeah, to that it was basically saying like, I've had difficulty with my spiritual journey because spirit has immersed me in um Afro-Caribbean practices, right?
Mm-hmm.
And oftentimes I like other myself because I feel like, well, I'm not Caribbean, so I don't want to take up space somewhere that I don't belong, but this is where you've led me, right? Um, so they kind of like brought that back to remind me that as a Colombian woman, like I may not be from an island, but I'm still part of the diaspora, and I'm still part of, a child of the ancestors that experience a similar history to the Caribbean. And
Mm-hmm.
we all come just together in history, right? And to just kind of look to the similarities that Colombian spirituality and Colombians Afro-Indigenous culture has, because it's literally, it mirrors so much of
Right.
also of the practices I'm already in. Does that make sense?
Definitely does.
So to stop othering myself basically, and just know that I'm here because they put me here, because this is how I navigate these layers of decolonizing, of decentering, you know, the things and the people and the situations that need to be centered, and the healing that needs to be done, and
Mm-hmm.
continuing on these like layers of my own healing and the healing of my people. So
For
um
sure.
sorry, that was very long, but nonetheless, thank you so much for that.
No, that was beautiful. Thank you. And I'm so glad that you were able to connect with these spirits and see them. And like, that's so affirming. I'm happy to hear that. Thank you. Let's take one more, and I want to leave space for any questions as well. Tolu? Tolu?
Yeah,
Saying your name
Tolu.
correctly. Tolu. Okay, hi.
Thanks. Hi. Yeah, I just wanted to say thanks for that. That was really, really powerful and really beautiful. I did not realize that you BC meant tree, and so it just felt really aligned with some of the messaging I've been getting for the last little while. Notably, my family's background is Yoruba, which is one of the tribes of Nigeria, and I
Mhm.
don't speak the language, but as I've been doing a lot of meditation lately, I've been meditating and also hearing like ancestor in Yoruba, which has been really interesting. So as I was doing this meditation, I definitely felt a lot of the grief across my chest, across my heart space. But one word that came to me that I was not familiar with was aye. And I just heard the ancestors call Aye, which in Yoruba means life or earth or life bringing.
Mm.
And again, I don't speak this language. My parents will ridicule me for not speaking the language, but so for that to come to me so clearly and me to be able to call it back and to speak it and to
Mm.
find that and seek it out. And it was interesting because I was in the vision, I was the tree showed up and I was playing in the branches and then I kind of swung inside and it was a library and it was super exciting because inside that library was like the library of the knowledge of all those ancestors and at the table were my grandmothers and my mom recently passed away. She passed away in the last 6 months
Oh my
and
goodness.
she was
Mhm.
there and she was smiling and then I just heard them say JIA, which means to bring life, to have life and to have joy in life. And my mom used to always say to us, oof, sorry, I'm just
No, that's
she used to say to us, oof, to have joy of life, to have joy of laughter, and to just bring laughter to the table. And so for that to be the message, to have life was so powerful. And there was this one pretty ominous vision that came through that they said, this is what you need to get past. But otherwise, aye, aye, aye. And I'm like, wow, that's yeah, so thank you. Thank you,
that's
thank
so
you, thank you, thank you. And
beautiful.
like, yeah, also makes me feel like I need to learn the language.
That's so beautiful. And I love that. I had like goosebumps as you were saying, like around this table are your grandmothers and your mother. And like you just felt the connection. Because sometimes even the language, like it's just a spirit connection. Like the language just it's just understood sometimes through spirit. And that's so beautiful. Thank you for sharing. Um, wow, thank you all so much and for everybody that's sticking around. I know we're past the time, but I want to leave another at least 10 minutes for any questions or any shares that are coming up in this moment.
Yeah, I do have a question. Sorry, I'm a little
Mhm.
new here, but
Hi.
I'm from the Bronx, by the way. So my background is Ghanaian, and it's weird because it's like I know I have some strong Ghanaian ancestral roots, but it's just
Mm.
like I feel a little lost, especially with the meditations that we were doing. I really couldn't see or visualize, or like I felt kind of like a little disconnected from what we
Mhm.
was doing and lost. So my thing is like, how do I start my own journey of like going within myself and kind of like staying rooted within something that really wasn't taught to me, and something that like, yeah, just how to like um build a strong foundation to start finding my own way of spirituality without having to kind of like fall into the traps of like, I guess, Christianity. That's my thing.
Yeah, no, I understand completely. Um, and it's real, like a lot of our backgrounds, they don't really equip us with the knowledge of connecting with the ancestors in particular, or spirits, like the benevolent spirits who walk with us. Um, Maybe if you're able to play this back at a later time, I would say try it again. But if sometimes guided meditation really isn't for everyone, sometimes it's hard to keep up, or, it's the sound is a little bit distracting of someone's voice. Something that I always recommend that is pretty constant throughout a lot of diasporic traditions and cultures is having a glass of water and a candle and really spending time daily where maybe you're not saying prayers because you mentioned like not wanting to go into like Christianity or Catholicism. So maybe you're not saying the Our Father or Hail Mary, but you are speaking from your heart and you are praying to, I say Gus. Gus is like God, universe, spirit. Um, Praying to these benevolent energies and connecting with them in a new way. Prayer and meditation don't look the same for everyone. So I would invite you to maybe it's a meditation that feels good, maybe music, there are so many. I like the link that I had sent you guys with the nature sounds. Like there are so many sounds like that. Maybe it's ocean waves that really get you to that like spot of spirit or that sort of like soothed sense of your spirit. But I would, play around with sounds, play around with different forms of meditation to see what clicks because it takes sometimes, especially when it's not intuitive, it takes us trying on different hats and visiting different practices like this one to see like, okay, that's cool, but I don't know if that's exactly for me, but what else is feeling good? Um, so yeah, I definitely invite you to like see where your curiosity is taking you. Um, yeah, but a glass of water and a candle are really calling in benevolent energies towards you.
Thank you for that.
Of course. Dolores,
Hi, Lindsay.
hi.
Hi. Thank you so much for holding the space. That was really beautiful for me as well. My question is because I've experienced like sleep paralysis in the past that also felt attached to negative energy. And I think that those experiences have made me afraid of my dreams. But
Mhm.
I do have very vivid dreams. So I'm just curious if you have any suggestions of how to like how I can explore this dream bridging safely and just like spiritually like protected as I
Mhm.
kind of explore this work more intentionally.
Yeah, for sure. That is a great question. Thank you for sharing that. That is a real thing. And I don't think a lot of folks speak about that in the dream world because it is this sort of like ethereal land. But sleep paralysis is a very real thing that can happen to folks. Something I'm going to go back to our Dreambridge tincture. The herbs that we use in there are really helpful for tethering your soul, like your spirit, to your body. Sometimes in that act of astral projection, astral traveling, especially being a sensitive person in the waking state or in the dream state, like there are, energies that can connect with us. So having the protection of whether it's specific prayers or intentions that you say before bed to protect your energy, or using plant allies like the Dream Bridge tincture. I'm trying to think what other ones. Lavender is really a beautiful, like psychic protection, spirit protection, herb or essential oil to have nearby as well. But there are many of us who are super sensitive in the dream state. So I understand that like precaution of like, okay, I really want to dive in, but what are some safety measures that I can take? Um, Again, this is something that we'll dive into really in depth when we go into the School of Remembrance. But for now, if you don't have the Dream Bridge tincture. Try some lavender. Ruda is like a really great herb to always have nearby, even if it's a plant that you have in your bedroom. Having specific plants or herbs in our sleep space really help to fortify your protection and energy as well. I'm gonna type it in the chat, the name of the plant for anybody who's interested.
Thank you so much. That's so helpful.
Of course, you're welcome. Is it Sybil or Sibel?
Oh, it's Sabelle. Yeah,
Sibel,
thank
okay,
you.
cool. How you
Um,
doing?
I'm good. Yeah, that was really gorgeous. Lately I feel like I've been reconnecting with my meditation practice and it just hit me in a very visual way that I haven't been able to experience in a long time. So thank you for that.
Mhm,
Um, yeah, dream. I connect to a lot of what everyone has mentioned in regards to like the connection with my mother and grandmother in our dreams. My mom is the Colombian side of me, and her and my grandmother and my grandfather all had these kind of like prophetic dreams. And similarly to the last share, I have a very extensive history of having nightmares due to a lot of trauma and PTSD. And so I have this experience of having very vivid dreams and seeing a lot of messages in my dreams. Um, and also them manifesting out of, like, stress or fear responses that maybe I don't
mhm,
necessarily need to or want to believe in, or I don't necessarily view them as helpful. And so I guess my question was, are there certain herbs, because the big message I got in the meditation too was my ancestors coming to me saying like a cleansing or like a purging was necessary. And
Mhm.
I was thinking about the PowerPoint you shared earlier and how it can be, dreams can kind of tell you like a diagnosis almost, or like something that's necessary. So if I were to try to focus on that in my dreams of like doing like a cleansing or purging, or calling in like a more good dreams or more benevolent spirits. I don't know. I feel like it's kind of a repetitive question to the things that you've answered before, but
No, it's not
I'd
for
love
sure.
your insight on that.
Yeah, definitely, of course. I think that that's really interesting that your ancestors and guides connected. You felt like they were saying you need a limpieza or like a cleansing,
Mm,
because those are some things that you can do on your own. Um, Again, you'll have the replay for this meditation, so you can go back if you want to like get more clarity or continue to connect with your ancestors to get more information. But it's really beautiful when you receive a diagnosis and a potential healing remedy because they're like, all right, girl, we got to get this going. We got to get you cleansed so that
mhm,
these, blessings and just messages can come through. I mentioned peppermint earlier in the chat, in the
mm,
conversation. Um, Peppermint is a really beautiful herb. Basil, like these are ones that you can get at your local grocery store, but that's where I would definitely start with a cleanse, even just to get some stagnation away. Bay leaves, peppermint, basil, parsley, even using things like lime or onions, even like things that are gonna traditionally like wash off heavy energies, and you can boil them as a tea. You can sort of like macerate the herbs and make the water very green and pour that over your body. Um, but I would sit with some, maybe there are like particular types of cleansings that your ancestors did that maybe they're waiting to give you more messages. So maybe tonight when you have a
mm,
dream, you can intentionally ask them, like, I need more guidance around this. The next class that we're having for the next community activation is protection and limpiezas. So there'll
mm,
be a whole module, another 2 hour class on particular practices and particular herbs that we can utilize to cleanse any dense energies from our bodies, and protect us from everything from astral to physical mal de ojo or anything of that sort. Um, yeah, I
mm.
hope that that's helpful.
Yeah, thank you. Just to interject a little bit, it felt like it
Yeah.
was definitely more from a place of like needing to forgive myself, like a self-worth thing. I don't know if that's a little different, but yeah, I'll try
Yeah.
the peppermint and everything for sure. Thank
Yeah,
you so
because
much.
yeah, regardless, I just want to say, like, regardless if it was something that was passed down ancestrally or something that we need to really move through in our own experience, those herbs are going to be really great allies for helping you just, get through that part of the journey.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, Tariq, we'll take this last one and I gotta go to bed, y'all. Is it Tarek or Tariq?
Tariq, yeah. No, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, cool. I know we're all trying to go to bed, so I'll try to be succinct as
No,
possible.
it's okay.
So I let me turn off this. I still got this forest going. Sorry. Um, I wanted to share quickly. I think similar to Rebecca, I guided meditations. I generally don't like come out with vivid things, but one thing I did notate was like the feeling. And so I just wanted to like bullet point my experience to kind of keep it succinct and feel free to like comment or talk to anything. But I just want to like communicate like the process of it and see if it
Okay.
resonates. So first thing I noticed was I started yawning. I yawned like 3 times. And as you was speaking, I also realized I had like parallel like thought processes and it will like also converge. Like I'm listening to you, but then as I'm listening to your voice, I'm having like two to three other separate like thought processes, and I'm somehow like holding it all together. Sometimes like your voice would tune out, and then but I'll still follow what you're saying. So that was another thing. But with the yawning, one of those parallel processes was like, because I thought about it the other day, I was like, is there a difference in like energetic consumption when it comes to anything spiritual versus like when we're just kind of going through our everyday? So like, why is it that, for example, if I want to like clean my home and do something with a little bit of intention, or versus I'm doing something else, like why does a simple task feel more tiring, or like why does my body like react in a certain way? For example,
Mhm.
like me yawning. Like I was like that was interesting. So that's like one or two things. The other piece was like my body felt like an energetic engorging, if that makes sense. Like there was a point you said it's like you're awake, but you're not fully asleep. You're in like that middle space.
Mhm.
And I could feel the sensation. And I was like, I don't know if this is auric field kind of thing, but like I could feel like a frozen in time, like my body's like frozen in
Mhm.
time, but I'm still here. And then a couple other things, two other things I think was as I was trying to meditate, like it was hard for me to like I guess I was trying to draw from real memories of like being on
Mhm.
grass or trees, whatever. But then I was like my imagination. I know somebody said something earlier about like Avatar. I was like, oh, I've watched that. Like that feels cool. And I was thinking about anime, but I was like, is this how it's supposed to come up? Is this part of like the reason why I can't like kind of meditate or follow along in that kind of way?
Mhm.
And then there was a point where he was talking about like going to the tree and things like that. And I just remember like in the back of my eyes, like just flickering. So my eyes are closed, but I can feel this flickering sensation. And it was like becoming more and more rapid. And then as we was like coming out, next thing you know, that frozen piece of my body started to like melt. And like I
Mhm.
remember like a melting sensation in my hands was like one of the last things to kind of melt away. Um So I just wanted to share that. I don't know. I didn't see any ancestors. I don't like none of that came through. So I'm not
Mhm.
like in that camp. But I guess I don't know if like the thought about like process, like so for example, like taking a step of like um joining one of your workshops is like I think just a part of the process or like trying to
Mhm.
build a spiritual practice and things like that. So yeah, I just wanted to share, see if any of that resonated.
For sure. No, thank you so much for that. And I'm so grateful to everyone's experience. I'm interested if you have done journey work before this. Have you done any other guided meditations or journeys?
Uh I don't think journeys. I mean, I think especially during the panini bread, I say panini bread instead of pandemic. It was, keep it light. But yeah, people do guided meditations, but I don't know. I just never. I was like, I don't know if I'm getting anything out of this. But
Right.
yeah,
Okay.
definitely.
Yeah. No, and that's great to know. That's there was someone earlier in the conversation who mentioned that they have a hard time with like just not hard time, but sometimes it is a little bit distracting to hear someone's voice. And you mentioned the first thing you said about being fully present while having like, a few other streams of thoughts like coming through. That's very much a way that our brain is being trained all the time. I mean, you could be waiting at a red light, answering an email while also like changing the song, while also like smoking a joint. Like, there's so
Hmm.
many things that we're constantly so stimulated by. So, when we take a moment to slow down and here's some a babbling brook and some crickets on YouTube. you know,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
somebody walking you through these leaves and this, tree. It can feel very like I noticed in the chat some folks even fell asleep. It's like we don't often give ourselves a time to just it can be really difficult. It can immediately like put you into that sleep state. But it's
Hmm.
just a training that we experience. It's like a titration. If it's something you haven't done before, you try it for a little bit. And again, if the guided
Mhm.
meditation isn't the thing, maybe listening to certain sounds and going into a different form of meditation. But I think it is a really slow titration process and experience where we're learning how to like expand and slow our thoughts down a little more. And then
Mhm.
the next time you go in and you're like, okay, because I love that you mentioned that time sort of slowed down and you felt like, what'd you say? Like, what was the word you used? Like expanding? You were expanding? But
Um, Frozen. I was frozen
yeah,
in
frozen in
yeah,
time.
yeah.
Like, I think that's really interesting because when we're in that, when I say journeys, I mean these sort of like guided meditation journeys where we are listening to someone, but we're sort of like the landscape, the experience is really our brain, our imagination is really drawing it up. And what happens to us when you're in that half and half state is really what you were like experiencing on a somatic level of like, oh shit, I feel kind of stuck, but it's kind of nice. I'm kind of floating, but time is kind of slowed down, but like I'm still thinking about XYZ while I'm hearing about the roots. So you are in that middle space of just I think more experiences and practice with this, I feel like you'll be able to settle in and be able to journey a little bit more deeply as you continue, if you choose to, continue practicing and experimenting. It is a lifelong practice. It's definitely not something that some days you'll wake up and be like, oh, should I journey deep? Like I received some
Mm,
information. And then, I've done this work for so long. There are times where I cannot get my head in the moment. So it's a constant practice and just seeing where we are in that moment. So thank you so much for sharing and for being open to being here today and trying this out.
no, thank you. And it was energetic and gorging. That's what I said. I was like, oh, I forgot what I said. But yeah, it was
Such
that.
a
And
specific word.
yeah, because I don't know, it felt like that felt like the most descriptive. But yeah, thank you so much for listening. Appreciate it.
Of course. Yeah, thank you. Well, thank you everyone so much. This was really beautiful. Um, as I mentioned, we're going to have another free workshop on March 21st. I also want to let you know that the early bird sign up for the School of Remembrance ends on March 1st. You can shoot me an email, shoot me a message if you have any questions about the school. I'm happy to connect. And yeah, you'll receive this in your inbox in the next day or so if you'd like to go back and try it again. All right, y'all. Thank you again. Have a beautiful night.
Thank you. Good night.
Bye.
Thank you. Good
Thank
night.
you.
Thanks, Lindsay. Good night,
Thank
everybody.
you.